It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because we wanted to see what kind of over-the-top amphetamines that crazy nut Marie Kondo was on when she throws everyone's things out. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
We're back with Talk Funny. I'm Mark Bailey, here again with Mike Bailey.
Hi.
We were talking last time about in Japan, sometimes as the Mr. Baseball example, Tom Selleck thinks it's about baseball, but his coach and all the Japanese players think it's about cohesion and saving face.
Right.
And you could beat the team, don't obliterate them.
Exactly.
Don't humiliate them.
Yeah.
But in the States and probably in Canada, I'm sure with hockey, I mean, you feel better if the other team has 0 and you've got like 80 points.
Winner take all.
Yeah. We got our goal every time. We didn't let them pass us at all.
Right.
You know, it is kind of like war. It's kind of ironic that the Japanese, they weren't that tame at the Bataan Death March, but somehow when it comes to baseball, they're not that cutthroat. We can't say hello Patreon anymore. We got kicked out of Patreon.
Hello,
I don't know.
Thought Space.
Hello, Sirius. I had an example like that when I worked for 10 years at this one radio station doing morning drive. And, I'm doing morning drive. It's the most competitive. It was Radio I. Our competition was my former employer, Zip FM, and we want to knock them out of the water because Zip FM, they were just everything. They were the number one station, So I'm getting on there and I'm saying, you listen to the number one radio station, your one-man Jew crew on Radio I, the number one station in the Goys, in their eye. About 2 hours of this, and then my boss comes in and she goes, what are you doing? I'm the number one morning show in the Goy, that's what I'm doing, She goes, but we're not number one. We're number 2. And I said, yeah, but that doesn't sound good, does it? Number two. If you're not listening to those guys, you can come to us. But first, listen to those guys because they're number 1. Number 2 radio station. Yeah, you're number 2 station. Nobody says that.
Maybe you could have done it more like Avis. We try harder. Number 2, that kind of thing.
America's number 5.
Yeah,
America's number 5. America's number 5.
57th station in the world.
So she said, you can't say number 1 station because Zip FM will get angry at us. And I said, screw them. They get dropped dead. I said, let them. I said, no, it'd be great. Let them put on their commercials.
Because then it draws attention to you.
Yeah. Let them put on their commercials. Don't listen to that Jew in Nagoya. don't listen to that Jew in Radio I in the mornings.
Yeah.
He's wrong when he says they're number 1. We're number 1.
They don't say that, and Japanese people would be like, what's a Jew?
Those are people we accidentally helped. Those are people we accidentally helped in World War II.
I heard, we kind of accidentally helped them.
We were in the Axis powers, and we weren't that into it.
Yeah.
Now, if it was Koreans that need to be rounded up, we were in on that.
We were in on that 100%.
But yeah, she said, now you're going to make James Havens angry. And I said, yeah, that's the point. So I did a interview with Japan Scene at that time, and they had just changed from the Alien. I used to write for them. Anyway, so the guy who wanted to help me a lot with my career, and we did an interview. And he said, so what do you think about your competition, James Havens? He's on the same time with you. And I said, I was going to do an interview with James Havens, but his producer said, where can we put the microphone? And I told him a good place he could put it. And they printed all that, right? They printed all that.
Kudos to them for printing that, because that's cool.
And I said, he's going to be a good first morning guy until they get a real one.
Oh.
But all these jabs, off the record, the guy said, well, what if he comes back at you? I said, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I'm a nobody.
That's right.
Everybody
then
knows
you
him.
get attention.
Yeah. And so my boss we call her Hazel because she was always, this old show, Hazel was the maid in the 50s, and she was always messing up the businessman's house, and someone would call and say, I want to make a deal, I couldn't reach him at the office, and she'll say, well, no, he never does business here, so we don't want your business. What is it, IBM? No, he doesn't want the contract. And she would screw everything up. And so my boss, who didn't know anything about radio, she came in the next week and she said, I called James Havens and apologized on your behalf. And he had never heard. And then I told him, whatever Mark said in the magazine, I'm sorry for that. And then he hadn't heard of it. But now he read the magazine. Now he's talking about you on Zip FM. I said, that's great.
Yeah.
She goes, no, it's horrible. And I listened, and he said, this guy used to work with me. Now he's trashing me. I never knew morning radio could be so competitive. Yeah, who knew? You get fired at the drop of a hat. Who knew?
Is business in Japan supposed to be competitive?
Yeah, so
I didn't realize that.
So my boss's boss actually came to me and said, we're not here to be the number 1 radio station. We're okay with being number 2.
Yeah.
Mediocre is fine.
Well, the thing you have to understand about the radio market in Japan is that it is not like America or Canada, where you'll have a city of 1 million people with 15 radio stations.
Yeah.
How many radio stations are there in Nagoya now?
Yeah, we should probably point that out. There's two or three, yeah. FM, right?
And that's not because there aren't people who don't want to start radio stations.
Yeah, and AM probably 8. Now, I don't know about Canada, might be different, but for example, New York, of course.
What, 50? I don't know.
65, 70 FM, as many as you can fit in the dial, right?
I mean, my hometown of Ottawa has more radio stations than Nagoya does, and Nagoya has probably twice or 3 times the population.
So New York, you would expect that, they have 65, 75 stations, but let's take a 14th market city. Number 14 would be Atlanta, and they had 35 FM stations, and they had the same population as Nagoya.
Yeah.
But also, they don't have Nielsen ratings in Japan. They don't know who's listening, and when I finally got to the inside...
Wow, how do advertisers know who to...
They have this sweeps week kind of thing, and then they give out surveys for that. But people just lot. But the sweeps week...
Nielsen's, that whole thing is BS.
So even at Radio I, during the sweeps week, it was in February and April, and they'd say, okay, now this week we're playing nothing but top 40. But that's not my show. Yeah, but they're listening now, so we're going to do top 40. And so I would play with them on that. One of them was during April Fool's Day, so I got on and I said, from now on we're only playing bands that have food names. So coming up is bread. We got all the stuff we had. We had bread and then hot chocolate.
Awesome, bread and hot chocolate.
We also want to have a moment of silence for Enya. She died in a horrible hot balloon accident.
Oh.
You give a moment of silence for her and all the great music. Let's just read a list of all the great music that she made. Okay, now time for weather.
Oh.
When I got down to all of it, after about 5 years, I realized that Zip FM is owned and basically funded by Toyota.
Okay, so that's why
they're the king.
That's why it's the big name.
Without Toyota, there's no restaurants here. I mean, this Toyota it's basically Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Nagoya's a company town. A lot of people don't know, and most of the companies are related to Toyota.
They don't even know they're related, but they are.
Yeah, they're like suppliers who supply parts and things like that.
But then the coffee shop down the street serves the suppliers.
Yes.
So they don't even know they're working for Toyota. But
everybody in Nagoya is working for Toyota.
All the advertising, all the food, everything. And it's all the hotels. They wouldn't exist. They wouldn't have a Hilton or a Marriott if it weren't for Toyota. Toyota vouched for them. They had the expo here because of Toyota.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Edison, New Jersey wouldn't exist without Thomas Edison. Hershey, Pennsylvania is all about the chocolate. And that's what Toyota in Nagoya is on a big scale. If you even say it fast, Toyota Nagoya, it sounds very close.
And even the thing that's interesting about Toyota is that the town that it started in was originally, I think it was called Kodomo. It was actually not called Toyota. It was named after the company, like Hershey, Pennsylvania, right?
Oh. Yeah,
it was originally had a different name. I think it was Kodomo or something.
Owari Seto used to be bigger than what is now Nagoya.
Right.
So we used to be part of Seto.
Oh, okay.
We used to be a suburb of Seto. Which is kind of funny because Seto is now a suburb of us.
So here's a weird thing you can watch on YouTube. I watched this because I was in a play last year about prisoners of war in Japan, and so I got kind of into this thing promoting the play, and I was looking up this wartime videos and there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, believe it or not, and there's this one video from the Ronald Reagan Library, and basically what it is they made these they made these films back in the 40s to guide the bombers on their way to where they would go to bomb, because of course back in the day they had no GPS, they didn't have any of that precise kind of navigation, and so they would make a film that would show the bombers, okay, this is when you hit the coast, and this is where you turn left, you turn east here or west here, and you go here. And so they say turn west over Kodomo, and I think that was, I think it's Kodomo. I think that was what became
I've
Toyota.
Heard something like that, yeah.
And then drop your bombs here on the Mitsubishi factory, and yeah, so basically Toyota, I mean, after the war became such a huge thing that they actually had the town named after them, and it's amazing when you think about it that one company could be so powerful, huh? And all of the subcontractors of Toyota are petrified of Toyota.
Oh, yeah.
Because Toyota will come in and say, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this. I once had a student who worked for a company related to Toyota, and she told me that I would ask her, and it was more like psychotherapy than it was a lesson, because she was very amazing speaker of English. I think she lived in America. I forget. It was years ago.
Right.
And I would say, how's things at work? And she'd be like, oh, it was awful. This thing came in, and the toy guy from Toyota came in, and he was telling us this and that, and he was yelling at us, and we weren't doing this right. And they can do that because their subcontractors' number one customer is Toyota.
Yeah, I just had to look this up, and I used to know this, but of course, you forget things. But yeah, without Toyota, you'd have the area that we live in would be only known by Tokoname, Tajimi, Seto, and Okazaki. Those were bigger cities than Nagoya was. When Toyota,
they were known for pottery, right? Pottery was the original thing.
Yeah, and that was the textiles. That was it.
Pottery and textiles. And Toyota originally started as a textile company.
Yeah, they were like, what was it? The Toyoda is the name of the guy that started. It was kind of we've been to the museum.
Go to the museum, yeah, and they have kind of looms there.
Looms, that's what it was.
Looms.
Yeah,
they show you how they
and
made
drapes
the cotton
and stuff like
silk.
that.
They made silk, and then I guess they imported cotton from somewhere, and they started making cotton, and that was the big business. And that was a huge business in Japan up until what I heard was the end of the textile business in Japan was actually the Kobe earthquake. Because when the Kobe earthquake happened, I heard this from a professor who, I'm not sure if it was from a professor who lived in Japan. I once went with a friend to his ex-professor's place, he's from Iran. He's a Baha'i who left Japan, left Iran for Japan. And he said that Kobe and that area of Osaka has never really fully recovered from the big Kobe earthquake. And the reason was they had all these textile mills that were putting out all this made-in-Japan textiles, and when the big earthquake hit, all of those mills were destroyed. And so afterwards they realized that was when China was opening up, and they realized we got to move to China because we can't compete anymore. So they moved all the textiles to China. And that was the end of that textile business. So in Japan now, there's not much in the way of that.
Back to the radio story. After about 5 years, classic rock was everywhere in the States, but they had never heard of it in Japan. They'd never had classic rock on a radio station. So during Sweeps Week, I came up with Electric Brunch, and I said, let's just do that. We'll play, 60s, 70s, 80s classic rock. And I played it, and then my show, for the same time period, beat Zip FM. It's the only time it ever happened to Radio I.
Wow.
And every time I did it, then a friend of mine who was also on, Canadian guy named Dave Yanase, he had another shift, and he said, do you mind can you help me do the classic rock too? And I said, yeah, if we both can do it. He was on afternoon, I have morning. I said, that would be great if we beat Zip. I just want to beat Zip FM. I just want to beat him. And if one more guy can beat Zip with me, then neither one of us can get fired. They won't fire us.
Great.
And so we both did classic rock. Zip FM copied us. I would get on and say, this is the original Electric Brunch. It's so good that everybody else is ripping us off, And so after 5 years, the general manager, who you never meet, of our radio station, Radio I, and he came in and he explained to me, and he said, normally we don't push the buttons of Zip FM. We don't want to piss them off. But they really admire you guys, and they admire us because you guys came up with a format that they're experts. They have a whole floor. Zip FM had 12th floor was broadcast. 11th floor was all research and marketing.
Wow.
Radio I had 3 desks of research and marketing. I didn't do any of it. And then it's just one floor. Radio I was just half of a...
It almost seems like it was designed purposely to lose money for some
Oh, it absolutely
reasons.
was. It was a loss leader. Because after 5 years, they finally explained to me. They said, so Zip FM, we can never actually destroy them because they're owned by Toyota, and Toyota will come after us.
So they said, don't try too hard.
Yeah. So I said, well, who are we owned by? They said, well, you know all those Koa commercials we're running? We're owned by Koa. It's a vitamin company. Basically, these energy drinks and all that crap. And that's what, they're nothing compared to Toyota. But they're a Nagoya company, so Koa financed us, but Koa was losing a lot of money, so they were able to write off our losses on their tax, right? And it only lasted for 10 years. It's a good accounting trick, but it doesn't last for long. So, yeah, Radio I was an accounting trick. But I got to play...
You put your heart and soul into that accounting trick.
Yeah, my heart and soul. I got to play Heart, and I got to play Boston, and I got to play Led Zeppelin. But, I actually paid for my house from that job. It was a good job.
So to all of you Hollywood scriptwriters out there, there's a story here that hasn't yet been made into a movie. Although it's an original story, so probably you're not interested. Go back to your Marvel movies.
It was a good run because they paid so well. My radio job paid so well. And I don't kiss and tell. I won't brag about how much it paid, but I wish I could have done it for more than 10 years there. But it did pretty much pay for my house. Just for 4 or 5, 4 hours a day. But again, 4 hours prep.
But you worked hard writing.
4 hours prep and writing.
4 hours prep. You worked hard writing.
And I did
You're probably
everything.
the only person who did that. Because you said on radio, on Zip FM, that guy wasn't really... You were trying to do like Howard Stern in Japan before anyone had even heard of Howard Stern in Japan. Yeah. So they were looking at you like, who the hell are you? Like, why are you doing that?
Why do you hate Zip FM? I thought you liked radio.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'm on another station. I have to destroy them.
I'm a competitor.
That's what Howard Stern did that people didn't understand before. Now everybody does. Opie and Anthony, they all trash their competitors. They're no longer around because Stern's better at it. But Howard Stern, he would do that. He would find somebody in the market who's the number one guy. That rest in peace,